scene, but it just seems to me something was missing. And when Patty invited me to this society, I finally found my tribe, my people, the sense of community. I look for it's like a safety valve. It's an unwind from tomorrow. I'm going to go back into the beast of the belly again for another 5 days, where I hear all kinds of stuff that just just don't seem right to me. But when I'm with you people, I'm with the right people. That's how I feel. It's my tribe. That's why I'm here.
Well, our theme for March has been making connections. And part of making connections is getting to know each other and deepening those relationships that we have with one another. I think Rick says it well there, of not just finding our tribe, which, at times in especially the political arena right now, there's always that talk of tribalism. Tribes in of themselves is not a bad thing. Having security within a tribe, having like-minded people that you can feel appreciated and you can appreciate somebody else, those are good and uplifting things. Becomes cliquish, it can become tribalism, which then is a negative. But making those connections and finding a people that you feel safe with, that you can learn from, that you can provide yourself into, that is uplifting. That can energize you for the rest of the week that comes before you. Especially, as Rick said, depending on where your work environment is, or, the people you interact with, knowing that there's a place that you can come and kind of get re-energized makes it great for the rest of the week. And I think this quote there about our overall theme is, it's not always about the size of how big a society is or a community, but it's the depth of connection. Roots in trees and plants need to sometimes go deep to get the nutrients that they need to survive. And that's what we do here. We grow our roots deep to give us the nutrients, to give us the feeding that we need for our continual growth. And as we grow stronger and deeper together with one another, then eventually we will branch out and our branches will grow bigger and more people will come, and that outward growth of size will happen. But it all begins with that personal work of deepening ourselves and our connection. As we come together this morning, let's recite together, if you don't mind, our affirmation of what we affirm about ourselves and humanity all around us. And I think it's important for us to realize that, when I always read this, I'm always thinking about my neighbor or the person I'm going to meet at the corner store or, in the grocery store. But I think it's also important that as we're affirming, we're recognizing that we're affirming this about ourselves as well. That not only is it other people that have worth and dignity, but we have worth and dignity ourselves. So together, go ahead, unmute yourselves, and let's have our affirmation this morning. So together we affirm
dignity and uniqueness of every human being.
And I just love that picture as well. And as we affirm the worth and dignity of all human beings, it is important for us to also honor and remember those whose lives were cut short this week by an act of white supremacy, by an act of hate. by an act of an individual who did not see the worth and dignity and uniqueness of other individuals, be it from the fact that they were Asian, be it the fact that they were women, be it the fact of what he thinks he said, you know, his mind of his sexual frustration. He did not see these people as individuals, as other humans, but rather as objects to be used and disposed of as he saw fit. So we're going to come together here to a time of meditation, of quietness. And I just want you to think on the names. These are the names of the individuals whose lives were taken, both their Korean and Chinese names and their age. For a time, just reflect on them. And we'll come back together then in a moment or two. My encouragement is for us not to forget their names, not to forget this experience of what happened. It's going to be easy tomorrow, the next day, the day after, for this just to fade back into our memory and yet be another tragic example of a mass killing and a mass shooting. My encouragement, though, is that this is an opportunity for us to understand the Asian community and their experience in America. There's a long history there of the way the West has dehumanized the Asian community. It's a work ahead of us to understand that. And I encourage you to do that work, to listen to the voices that are speaking out from the Asian community, to understand what it is that they go through each and every day. As we know, March is Women's History Month, and Jesse brought us the story of the wheel women and the bicycle face last week, which I still get a kick out of, that whole notion that bicycle face was a thing. And I'm encouraged and interested to figure out who Faith Ringgold is. Jesse had said, hey, I want to share about this individual. And I'm like, that's great. And I did my best not to Google them because I wanted to hear firsthand and have excitement of who Faith Ringgold is. So Jesse, it's all yours.
Okay. So Faith Ringgold is an artist. And the reason why I wanted to share a little bit about her is because we're telling our stories, and this month is about making connections, and we're talking about women's history. and women of color, etc. She is one of the first people that comes to mind for me, because her work is all about telling stories. And her most famous works are what she calls story quilts. So she started to tell her story in the form of quilts because she wanted to publish her autobiography and was rejected. So she started incorporating it into her art. She was born in 1930 in Harlem. She grew up right in the Harlem Renaissance, and her mother was a fashion designer. So she learned a lot about fabric, and that you can see definitely reflected in her work. She was also very much inspired by African art, in masks and dolls, and also a trip that she took to Amsterdam really was a turning point in her work. And then during the 1960s, she started making a series of paintings reflecting the civil rights movement. I believe it's called American People. That started to get her some recognition. She studied art education and taught in New York City public schools, and eventually was a college professor. And her most famous work, called Tar Beach, is a children's book. She wrote several children's books. And it's actually a form of her story quilts that tells her story. And her imagery is always, not always, but a lot of times you'll see people flying. So this is a piece of the quilt story. It's a series of quilts, and you can see the words on it. She started to write words around the borders. And it depicts her life in Harlem, her parents, the struggles that they had with racism, and yeah, and it's really about liberation. So these people flying above, it's just a powerful image. And I remember the first time I got off the subway in Harlem and saw the mosaic installation that she did with all these figures flying. And those were the heroes and heroines of the Harlem Renaissance that she depicted. And it just stuck with me for the rest of my life. And as a teacher, I always gravitated towards that book, Tar Beach. So I will be reading that book actually this Thursday on Jay's Keep Living Reflection show at 8 p.m. So I hope to see some of you there maybe, and share that story with you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know who she was. And I love the idea of the quilts. My wife likes to quilt. She hasn't quilted in a while. We haven't had the space for her to get her quilts out. But that is such a unique and inspiring way of doing art through quilting. And that's really cool. I'm gonna have to look her up and get some more information from my wife. To see
and I
that.
also wanted to just mention too, you reminded me that thinking about telling your story, which is why we're here today, I thought it would be fun to also just think in the back of your mind, what would your story look like as a visual representation or a dance or a play or a sculpture, and think about all of the languages that we have to communicate, not just speaking and writing. Just something to think about that I think is fun.
Sorry, I'm writing that question down so I can ponder it later. Yeah, it is a unique way of, because we tend to think of telling our stories only through verbal communication, speaking, listening, but maybe not always necessarily, at least from my standpoint, I don't always think of it as seeing it in a different way or acting it out or having it performed in that manner to tell a story. But my hair is still definitely telling a story up there. I'm not sure what it's doing. I don't know if I like the story that it's telling, but be that as it may. So yes, this morning we are going to look at listening and telling our stories. And what we will do, or what I will do then, is I will be randomly shooing you into breakout rooms. Yeah, it's definitely uplifting. All right. So we'll break out into breakout rooms. I'm just going to randomly kind of assign 2 people into each room, and give you some prompts to tell your story, to tell a little bit about yourself, so you can make it biographical a little bit. I've got some questions I will type out, and that you should be able to see in the breakout rooms to give you some prompts to share a little bit about yourself, as well as sharing what brought you to SVES in the first place, maybe how you got here. You know, since it's all virtual, the dad joke of by car will not be an acceptable answer, because you didn't get here by car this morning. And so not only what brought you here, but also maybe what keeps you here, and what the society means to you. So to share a little bit about that, I have the breakout room scheduled for about like 12 minutes or so. And then there'll be a countdown, and then magically through Zoom, you will all come back into this main room. At least that's how it's supposed to work. So we'll see if it works that way. So that's kind of a roadmap here moving forward. I did want to share a little bit before we get into that, though, about listening. I think oftentimes listening is a very passive experience. It's just something that happens in some ways unintentionally. You know, as we're walking, as we're in the store, you know, even if we're in a house full of people, we very often passively listen. We hear the sounds around us. Sometimes we pay attention to them, sometimes we don't. Maybe sometimes we try to not hear the stories or the sounds, such as when our dog rings the bell to go outside and everybody else in this house hears it, but yet nobody does anything to take them outside. It's like, did you guys not hear that? Oh, no, what bell? I'm like, I was in the basement and I heard the bell. Like, you guys heard it. You know, so sometimes we don't always actively listen. So I wanted to give some thoughts on active listening before we head out into our breakout rooms. I think it not only will help us as building our relationships with each other, but as I mentioned earlier, I think it'll help us to understand those that have a different viewpoint, have a different understanding of life and the world and their place in it, and, you know, all those different things. At times, if we actively listen, we might be able to better understand. So, as we prepare to listen, I think we need to keep in mind that it's an active process. It's something that we are intentionally doing. And in doing so, there are times that we want to remove the distractions around us. It's not always possible, I get it. But maybe sometimes, you know, especially if we're meeting somebody for coffee, one-on-one or something like that, trying to remove the distractions around us, putting the cell phone down, turning it off, you know, turning the TV off if we're in a room talking with somebody. I realize we all like to think that we can multitask, but we really can't. And if we want to actively listen, it's best to, you know, try to remove those distractions. And one of the other distractions that is sometimes difficult for us to remove is our own thoughts. And I think when we want to come to listen to somebody else, especially if we're looking to listen and understand a different viewpoint, we need to remove and not get distracted by our own thoughts. Because oftentimes, I know this happens to me, I'm listening for that key word, that talking point, that buzzword that I know that when they say that, oh, I've got the best comeback for that word or that thought, and I can kind of prove them wrong. Well, what that means then is I haven't really been listening to them. I haven't been listening to why they have that opinion or how they came to that conclusion, nor am I listening for ways to engage that opinion. I'm only listening to be able to shoot it down or to prove them wrong. And that isn't building in connection. That isn't building understanding. That's just me listening for an opportunity to prove that I'm right or that I'm more knowledgeable on something. And that doesn't help to build those connections. I think as being an active listener, we also have to be mindful of our own body language. What is it that we're conveying? You know, I'm not sure the exact statistic or percentage, but most of our communication is done non-verbally through our body language. You know, are we keeping eye contact? Are we looking around somewhere else because we're distracted at what's out the window or another noise that's made? Do we have our arms crossed? Do we have a scowl on our face? You know, what is that body language that we're communicating? And are we actively listening to the body language of the other individual? Are we catching their cues? Maybe their frustration, maybe their sadness, maybe their distraction. You know, are we listening and seeing their body language so that we can kind of, as they say, read the room and understand maybe we unintentionally said something that was hurtful and they're not comfortable to speak it up, but we could see it and acknowledge it. So are we active and mindful of the body language that's being portrayed? The other thing that over the years that I found to be very difficult as a teacher, and Jesse, I'd be curious if this was true for you as well, is embracing silence. Oftentimes when we're in communication or teaching or listening to somebody else, we want to fill silence. Silence is a good thing. There is much that can be communicated in silence, and it's okay for there to be a time of silence, to gather our own thoughts, to allow the other person to ponder and to sit with what has been spoken, and that we don't need to rush communication. And they say silence is golden. Silence is okay. It can be troubling. It can be hard because we're so used to hearing noise. And sometimes we're not sure what to do with silence, but it's okay to sit with silence. It can be awkward, but silence is a good thing. One of the other things that I think we need to look at when we prepare to listen is when we're in dialogue with somebody and asking questions, to ask open-ended questions. As a parent, that's something that I've learned to work at doing better, especially with my children when they would come home from school. You know, how was your day? Good. Okay, now what do I say? You know, or, you know, so asking, you know, well, what did you do today? Or what did you learn in math class? Or, you know, asking questions that don't require just a yes, no, one word answer, but asking more open-ended questions, asking in a sense, better questions, and asking questions that clarify. So if somebody says something that you don't really understand, go ahead, ask a question back and saying, is this what you were meaning? Or as I heard, you know, as I listened to you, this is what I understood you to be saying. And asking it backwards so that, or asking it back so that there can be some clarifying questions so that there isn't miscommunication. And being to admit that, you know, I didn't quite understand what you meant. Can I ask you a question on what you were saying? So that you can have a better understanding of what was being said. I think there may be times that we're afraid that if we ask that clarifying question, it shows that we're ignorant or we're unknowledgeable. That's a good thing. That's okay. That's okay to say, hey, I don't understand or I don't know this. Can I ask you a question more on it to better understand? Yes, if you're paying attention to the chat, Jesse is asking some, expounding on some of these things very well of how to ask some better questions. So I encourage you to look in the chat if you can, but don't be too distracted. Why should we actively listen? Well, I think there's three things that it really helps us to do. It helps to build trust with one another when we're listening to one another. It helps us to broaden our perspective and hear from another person's experience, not just our own. And I think also it allows us to be approachable in the future, that people will recognize that you are a person, we are a place that they can come and share their story, their experience, and know that it will not only just be appreciated, but it will be understood, it will be cared for, it will be held as valuable as it is, and that the individual will be held valuable. So as we listen, it helps to build trust, it broadens our own perspective, and we become approachable. So with that, I am going to see if this whole breakout room thing works. And I am just going to randomly assign two screens or two individuals. I know for some of you, there's already two people in there, so it might be a room of three. And then I will ask some questions. I believe there's a way I can broadcast questions to each room. So let me go here. Oh, it looks like this might work. So.
Nice opportunity to have that. We were speaking a little bit about just sort of dealing with the pandemic and socializing, and why we joined SVES, and I just thought that was a nice chance to kind of connect one-on-one, and it honestly also made me realize that that's one thing I like about some of our group sessions that we've talked about is just an opportunity to have like some dialogue and listen and talk to each other, like even around the more structured aspects of our meetings. Like I found that very just great to hear about different people. So it was nice to hear about the sort of Marcus background, and even just that snippet of Rick and like what you're doing, and more that informal aspect of our community, I guess. I appreciate that.
Cool.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, what I found with my discussion with Lindsay is, even though we come from such diverse of backgrounds, almost the same thing has brought us here, that it's the need to do good or hear a different side of a story without the religious dogma attached to it is what I really got out of it. And that's the kind of the glue that binds us here in a way. even if we do have a religion, if we still believe in our religion, there's the good deeds that we are doing without the dogma that bring us here. And that's what I kind of got out of our discussion. We're so different, but the same is what I got out of it.
Yeah, we talked, Mike and I talked with Nancy. Of course, you know, we've known Nancy from our very early beginnings, and we've shared a lot about what brought us here and why we stick around. I did appreciate the fact that, you know, my husband was talking about his highlight of the week was being out of doors, and, you know, his connection to, you know, just the earth and getting our outdoors, you know, prepared for the spring and the summer. And Nancy picked up on this being being outdoors, a very important part of herself as well. So, so there was that outdoor connection between.
And we can expect a marvelous sculpture involving water that's going to capture Patty. So be prepared to throw coins in a most marvelous fountain someday.
Ooh, that is exciting. There, I have about halfway through my route in the morning, there is this house that has a very abstract piece of art right by their mailbox. And each week I go by, I'm like, huh, well, it kind of looks like a flame, kind of looks like a candle. Maybe it's the wind. I don't know, it's just neat seeing the different pieces of art like that. So yeah, nice. Yeah.
It is just really nice to learn a little bit more about each other on some, you know, some other level, because we can kind of glean things from what people say during these meetings or in the chat, but it's that sort of water cooler talk, or, you know, just even on a little bit deeper level, connecting with other people here is really nice. And it was nice to learn a little bit more about Amir and what he's going through, and, you know, it was just, of course, it was just on the surface for both of us, but it was nice to hear other people sharing a common experience.
Very good. I'm glad it seems to have done what I was hoping it would do. That's always, as the A team would say, it's great when a plan comes together.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We sat with Guy, and Guy was, I actually did not know that Lynn and Lynn Cox, who is the interim minister over at the Washington Ethical Society, that Guy knew her. So that was really, really cool, you know, and sharing and just the discussion of, you know, Guy comes to Susquehanna. You know, we kind of got into a conversation because I saw that you had posted questions, but the questions didn't stay in the chat, and I don't know what happened there for us. But I knew that it was like this arrangement of, like, you know, I definitely was very interested in, like, what was the welcome formula that gets us to come to Susquehanna Valley Society. And so it was really, really interesting, you know, because I think we all kind of share in this, like, need to be, like, authentic and be curious and, like, personal improvement. And so it's really, really nice. And then Guy was sharing with me about sharing in my dilemma with trying to write a paper. Well, of course, not just any paper, a dissertation. And talking about, like, a 7-year journey of, and I was like, no, they want me out. They want me to get out by 4 years. So yeah, so it's like, yeah, so it's really, really nice.
Lindsay, did you want to share?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with getting my video on right now. There's too much happening in my house, but yeah, I really appreciated this morning and this opportunity to connect with Rick. Rick is a pretty incredible person, and it was so awesome to hear his story and what brings him to this community and how valuable this community has been to him. So Rick, I just want to say thank you again for sharing yourself like that. I had a friend in a book club once say that like all of us should be able to write our own autobiography and just sort of like contribute to the world by being able to put down like, this was the life of me. And that's how, you know, like that was my contribution to society in some way. And having an opportunity to just, you know, kind of share this one slice of our lives of like how we came to be on this call today, basically, is just such a nice chance to reflect ourselves on what is this part of this story of myself, you know, as you like hear yourself trying to express that to somebody else and feel like you're being really heard and listened to. So yeah, like Rick said, we come from such different places, and yet there was such an overlap in the end of what drew us to be on this call right now. And I really loved being able to just absorb his story. It was a really lovely experience.
Awesome. That's very encouraging to hear from everybody. I really appreciate that. And again, I'm very grateful that what I envisioned would happen actually did happen. So you never know, and I'm glad it really did. So yeah, so hopefully not only does this help us to learn more about each other, but hopefully this has given us an opportunity to take this to other people that we meet, and to hear their stories and their life and learn something about them. Again, especially for individuals that might think differently or believe differently or have different experiences than us, that it can help us to broaden our understanding. And I think the more we become approachable, then hopefully more the other person is willing to ask us about our story, and then we can share more about who we are. Before I move on, I just want to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to share here this morning about your experience. Don't want to just rush it off too soon. But. All right, I would like to leave us with a song that I've been recently introduced to by Mandisa, and hopefully it inspires you and captures who we are, and it will inspire you for the week ahead. Hold on, there we go. So with that, Well, I hope everybody did enjoy that song, and hopefully you didn't see me dancing in the background. So that and the hair would have freaked everybody out. So enjoy. Yes. Wasn't quite sure of the time, but as we wrap up here, truly, this is a place where the love shines. I think we experienced that here this morning with one another. And as we go out for the rest of this week, let's be that person that has that love shining into others' lives, and at the same time be able to encourage others to come and experience the love that is here too, because that is what people are looking for. That is what people need. And as we continue to grow this place, they will experience the love that is found here. So just some quick announcements. The upcoming events. Next week, we have the All Platform Society with Congressperson Jamie Raskin, talking about partisanship, fascism, and the common good, defending public ethics after the January 6th insurrection. Just note that the time is at 11 a.m. So we will be meeting at 11 for the All Society platform. We'll text out the link. Email out the link, but you do want to get there early. Sometimes if you get too close to 11 o'clock, there's a cap and then you might not get in. But then they usually open it up anyways, but if you can get there early, great. And it is my understanding that they are encouraging kind of a virtual coffee social hour afterwards. So if you have that time, perhaps that is something we can do as well then in our own society afterwards. But we'll see what that day is like. April 5th at 7 o'clock, there will be a meet and greet. So come on out and hang out with Jay and his team as he begins his 6-month residency with SVES. We'll learn a little bit more about him. I believe he's got a game or two prepared. And I thought there was a conversation about mimosas being delivered to our doors. Is that right?
You know, well, look, you're going to have to make your own mimosas, but I will. It is Monday. So since the platform is taking place on a Monday in the evening, we're talking about, yes, moral mimosas. And
very good.
And so everybody should have a mimosa. So get your sparkling and get your orange juice. If you want to make a Berlini, that's fine too. That requires peach instead of orange juice, but sparkling.
Very good. And then on April 25th, more information will be coming out, but we'll have a special showing of the documentary Seeding Change, looking at our environment, climate change, and things that we can do to live a little bit more of an ethical life in regards to our environment. But again, more information will be coming out about that shortly. So with that, again, thank you for being here this morning. And you're more than willing to hang out if you so choose. The sun is calling me as well. My son and I are going to build some raised beds for our garden. So we're going to go out, get some lumber, and do some yard work today.
Hey, love everyone. We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your week.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, Nancy. Bye, Brian. Bye, Jay. Bye, Patty.
Bye.
Bye, Scott.